Next, I'm going to play another excerpt from Schumann because Schumann embodies another particular interest by Romantic composers, which was an interest in the innocent. For example, interest in children. One of the ideas of the Romantic era was that somehow that our intuition might be superior to our intellect and the kind of learning and education that adults acquire. An example of that in literature, just in case you're interested, is the poet Wordsworth, for example, who oftentimes seemed to want to capture the innocence of children, or perhaps the directness of our inner intuition as opposed to our educated intellect. Schumann, for example, wrote famously Scenes from Childhood, Kinderszenen. He wrote a piece called Album for the Young, and this interest in that, I think, is again a kind of a reflection of the interest among Romantic composers and Romantic thinkers in getting away from reason, from our rational minds. The Humoresque, which we just heard a moment ago, actually the very opening of that piece, which we didn't listen to, the tempo marking at the beginning, actually it's not a tempo marking, but it says at the beginning, it says einfach, which in German means simple. And that is a word that actually Schumann does use quite a lot, as if being simple and being innocent is superior to being complicated and intellectual. So actually, I'm going to play a little excerpt of myself playing a little bit of Kinderszenen, Scenes from Child, just the very beginning, and I think you'll hear it as an example of music that's supposed to be very simple and very innocent. The fourth aspect of Romantic music that I want to emphasize as we're introducing some of the ideas of Romantic music today is the interest in folk music. This is connected, I think, to the idea that we saw in that painting, The Death of Sardanapalus, and these interest in things that were foreign and exotic. During the Romantic era, we see many, many more pieces written that are in some kind of folk style. And this was in part because it appealed to audiences in places, these sort of big metropolises like in Germany or a city like Paris, where they could hear this music that to them sounded very unusual and perhaps strange. For example, those Liszt Hungarian Rhapsodies, as I mentioned before, Chopin mazurkas and polonaises, these pieces which were evoking Polish sounds. And so, as an example of that, we're going to listen to my good friend Roberto Poli playing a little bit of a Chopin mazurka. And you can notice how different and perhaps strange this music must have sounded to people who, up to that point, had perhaps only heard music in what we think of as a sort of standard classical style.